Okay, V22, we'll be doing increase and decrease. So we have 250 with a 10% increase. So I'll start off with the 250, which represents 100%. Okay, to make 10%, we basically divide this by 10. And that will basically remove the 0. We'll get 25. So we'll have 25 here. Now the reason why I'm putting 25 here is because these are my ones, and these are my tens, columns, my hundreds. So I make sure I keep everything in the ones, tens, and hundreds. And you know, of course, behind here, or behind the decimal, you got your tenths. I don't need them right now. All right, so this is an increase, so we're going to add these two. So 0 and 5, that's your 5. 5 and 2, that's your 7. And 2, that's your 2. And this 25 here was the 10% that we were looking for. And since we're adding these two together, 100% plus another 10% increases to 110%. Okay. Let's do a decrease. So this is 250. And 10% we can find by dividing this by 10. Dividing this by 10, we get 25. Okay. So again, this represents 100%. The 25 represents 10%. Now, for a decrease, we want to subtract. I want to make sure I have everything. This is ones, this is tens, and these are hundreds. So I'm going to subtract 5 from 0, cannot be subtracted. So we're going to borrow. So I'm going to make this a 4. And this is now going to become a 10. So now we got a 10 here and a 4 there. So 5 from 10 leaves 5. 2 from 4 leaves 2. And we have 2 left over here. So this is 100%, take away 10%. This represents actually 90%. Okay, next one. Okay, this is 250 and we want 5%. So 250 represents 100%. To get 5%, we basically go to our 10% answer, which is 25, and we get half of that in order to get the 5%. Now, how do you take half of a 25? It's not easy. That's an odd number. So I'm going to take half of 24, and then I'll take half of 1. So I'll do it in steps. So half of 24, and I'll show you guys what all this looks like. Half of 24 divided by 2 will be 12. Then the 1 that's left over, half of 1, is going to be 0.5. So half of 24 is 12, and half of 1 is going to be 0.5. So I'll put these both here. This is my 12, goes here, and my 0.5 goes right there. And so we now have our ones, our tens, our hundreds, but I need a 0 for the tenths. Okay, so I got everything. Kind of squeezed in there. That's okay. So let's do an increase. So we're going to add these two together so that we can get 105%. So the 5 and the 0, put a little decimal there, adds up to a 0.5. The 2 and the 0 adds up to a 2. The 1 and the 5 adds up to a 6. And the 2 is a 2. Okay. So that's 105%. Next, 250. Once again, 250 represents 100%. 5% we found was 12.5. So here's the 12. Okay. And the 0.5 has to have its own tenths column. So this has to be a 0.0. Now, since we're doing decrease, we're going to subtract. And we find that you cannot take 5 from 0. So we go here to borrow. There's nothing to borrow here, so we're going to borrow from the 5 here. So this 5 becomes a 4. This 0 becomes a 10. And when we borrow from the 10, that becomes a 9. And then this becomes a 10. So 5 from 10 gives us 5. And then decimal. Okay, 2 from 9 leaves 7. 1 from 4 leaves 3, and then our 2. And so this was again 5%. And when we subtract 5% from 100%, this represents 95%. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Next, we'll look at 20%. Well, once again, 250 represents 100%. For 20%, what we're going to do is go to the 10%, which is 25, and I just need 2 of those. Okay, to go from 10% to a 20%, we basically need 2 of the 10% answers. So 25 to 25, which is 50. So 50 actually represents 20%. Now let's make an increase. So we're going to add those 2 together. And when we add these 2, we get 300. And that represents 120%. Okay. Now let's do a decrease. 250, which represents 100%. And I need 20%, so I go back up to my 10%, which is 25, and I need 2 of these, so 25 plus 25 is 50. 50 represents my 20%. But I'm going to make this a decrease, so we're going to subtract 50. And what we end up with is 200, and that's 80%. Okay. All right, the last one's here. We're going to do a 15%. In order to do a 15% here, we're going to need to put our 10% together with our 5%, which is the 25 together with the 12.5. When I put a 25 together with a 12.5, which is 10% with 5%, I get a 15% answer. Let's go down here and get the 15% answer by adding. The 15% answer will be 37.5, and that's what I get when I put together the 25 here and the 12.5 here. They both combine to make a 37.5. So 37.5. So I'm going to add these two so that I can get 115%. So adding these, I'll get a 5, my decimal, a 7, 5 and 3 will be an 8, and then the 2. There we are. And this is 115%. Next, let's make a 15% decrease. So 250 is actually the 100%. We found out that 37.5 represents the 15%. And to decrease it, we're going to have to subtract. Okay, I'm going to add a 0 here because I want to need to do some borrowing because I cannot take 5 from 0. And I cannot borrow from another 0, so the 5 is the only one to borrow from. So this will become a 4. This now becomes a 10. And we borrow from this, that 10 becomes a 9. And now we have a 10 here. So 5 from 10 leaves 5. 7 from 9 leaves 2. Decimal here. 3 from 4 leaves 1. And then there's a 2. So 100% minus 15% means that this is 85%. This number.